Okay, we are live. Hey, it's James Haydock, Product Marketing Manager at DIYOTTA here. Welcome everybody, and thanks for stopping by. It's really great to have everybody join us today. I see that we are, let's see, already 19 attendees, and that's great. And I know that we have plenty more people coming along too. So let's not waste any sort of precious time here. Let's dive straight into today's webinar, which is Go Faster. This is the story of how Clearsense accelerated their data platform as a service. So I'm just going to press this magic button here and basically cross my fingers that I don't break anything. And let's get started. If you're a CTO, a programmer, a data analyst, or just someone that wants to simplify data integration, then this webinar is for you. We're here today to talk about the key success factors for building a rapid and secure data platform as a service. You can see on screen our agenda today, and as the famous rock song goes, we don't need no education. So this webinar really isn't a formal class, it's not a lecture. It's really a chance to listen and to learn and to ask questions with your peers. So for the first time, we're actually going to hear the story of how Clearsense, one of Gartner's cool vendors of 2019, overcame some really complex data challenges and accelerated their data platform as a service. Then once we have shared the story with you, then we're going to move on to the second part of the webinar, which is the all-important Q&A. So this really is your chance to learn. Please ask us anything about DPaaS in this section. You can include things about planning, maybe implementation, any of the resources that are required to implement a DPaaS. What we've done today is we've put together an incredibly smart and friendly team, and they're here at your disposal. So please, they're really eager to share what they've learned over the last 18 months. So don't miss this opportunity to ask a question or two of the Clearsense team. And then finally, at the end of the webinar, you can, if you wish, learn more about DIYOTTA. So DIYOTTA is basically the data integration solution that Clearsense use to power their data pipeline development. And there's even a chance, as I say, at the end, to basically try out a version of the software, our new version, which is 4.5. So for those of you who are not familiar with Clearsense, they are a technology company. They're based out of Jacksonville, Florida, and they offer a scalable cloud-based platform for healthcare companies. I have with me the team that were instrumental in learning hands-on what it takes to build an industry-leading DPaaS. We have Charles, Dave, John, Beth, and Brian. So thanks for those guys for coming out and sharing their wisdom with us today. So here's the deal. What we're going to do is, if you give us the next 55 minutes of your time, then basically we're going to provide you with 5 key learnings. First, we'll jump into the top 5 challenges of building a data platform as a service. After that, we're going to simplify the complexities of a modern data ecosystem. Then we'll discuss data pipeline speed and data dexterity, and we'll talk to you a little bit about why they matter. And then there's even a section where we talk about what not to do, and also what the best tools are to use along the journey, including DIYOTTA. And I'm pretty sure as we go along, there's also going to be other nuggets of wisdom that you're going to pick up along the way here today. And then finally, this is recorded. So if you miss anything, then you can always go online and hit the replay button later. So that's pretty much the formalities over with. What I'm going to do now is I am going to hand over to my first guest. Let me introduce him first. It's Charles Boise. Charles is the co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer at Clearsense. As the CIO, Charles combines both clinical expertise and deep technology experience. From running the trauma unit at LA County USC Medical Center for 15 years to earning 2 degrees in computer science and technology management, Charles's mission is to drive a healthcare landscape where data dexterity and a flawless user experience support holistic patient care and dramatically healthier outcomes. So welcome, Charles.
Hey, thank you, James. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure.
James, yeah, so I'm gonna, get into this, but we have a little bit of a tech problem with the slides advancing for the audience, and my colleagues will probably affirm. Right now, we're still on the first slide. That is okay, because as you're working through that, I will go ahead and continue on introducing Clearsense and the DIYOTTA relationship. Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us either this morning or this afternoon. Clearsense is a data platform as a service. We service the healthcare industry, and really our reason, for being is twofold. One, the number of data inputs, as well as the various needs for those data inputs. Great, we're in good shape. We're on the right track. So Clearsense founded in 2015, and again, we if you think about the data that's available for healthcare within the organization, we have the electronic medical record data. We have the data that's streaming from the various instruments, whether they be physiological monitors, ventilators, smart pumps, and then external to the environment, we have patient-generated data with medical IoT devices. We have what we call exposome data. That's data about the environment, so temperature, air quality, pollen counts, humidity, so as well as even social media data and what we call social determinants of health. Metadata about that patient population. So we have a bunch of data sources that we need to make sense of, for our clients. And not getting in too much of the tech, Clearsense really is a private cloud environment set up for bringing data in from a Lambda perspective, so from both batch as well as streaming, into an SQL on Hadoop environment with data governance at its core, a whole bunch of services at the front end to acquire data, including Fire HL7, RESTful and other APIs, and then a complete data processing, if you will, using the technologies within DIYOTTA to reach an endpoint, which could be a product within Clearsense. It could be a data visualization in Clearsense, or it could be, again, HL7 outbound, Fire outbound, client's visualization, as well as an output of a data set that then is ingested. So that really, if you think about, from a technical perspective, what is at the base of Clearsense, that really is it. With DIYOTTA, DIYOTTA playing a very key component part in that. So again, very much scalable. I'll get into data dexterity in a second. What's really super important is we are architected to be future-proof, so that as new technologies come into play, we're able to bring them in, such as DIYOTTA. It's super important if you're architecting out solutions, whether they be healthcare, financial, logistics, that you keep that in mind. Also, core component parts of DIYOTTA also allow us to be extensible. And what do I mean by that? It's not just a choice of what cloud provider am I going to use. If you think about all of them as a single cloud, it's what functionality am I going to take advantage in what particular cloud environment. So if all my data is in Clearsense, yet I want to run something in AWS, I can run that data set through DIYOTTA, output to AWS those calculations can be run and then back in through a pipeline into an end product. So it's super, super important that, as we're building out these solutions, we keep that in mind. And I'm going to need a little bit of help advancing to the next slide, James.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So go ahead and advance to the next one. So what is data dexterity, and what does that really mean to any of us? And it really is the the ability to exploit, in our case, data related to healthcare, and to be able to achieve better outcomes. This definition can be applied to, again, the financial sector, retail, banking, logistics, and so forth. So the only way that we're really able to do that is to get initially, all our data in one place, and then have technologies in place that allow us to, take advantage of that data now as well as into the future. The team is going to show you examples of how we're doing that technology now, but it's super, super important to understand that from a DIYOTTA perspective, in a partnership and a going forward perspective, they're really able to help us, in the long term. And what do I mean by that? In our R&D lab, we are working with the team at DIYOTTA to instill RPA, or robotic process automation, into a data pipeline that allows us to go beyond what we normally consider, rule-based, activities within a data pipeline to more of an AI automated base. And because DIYOTTA is built on architecture similar to Clearsense, using advanced technologies and so forth, it is not a lift to bring these technologies within the application. And if you think about an API-based data pipeline solution, it completely makes sense, as opposed to the older monolithic type data pipelines that we're all used to. So I also have on the team with me David Quickstead, our VP of Product and Infrastructure, who is also, fun fact about David, he's also a grad from West Point. So I'm going to bring in Dave. We are then going to get into the next slide, if you don't mind advancing it for me.
Yeah.
We're going to get into kind of challenges in building out a data pipeline or data platform as a solution in the context of pipelines and so forth. So David, would you like to join me?
Yes. Thank you, Charles. Hi, this is David Quickstead. I'm our Vice President of Platform Development and Engineering at Clearsense. So what are the top 3 challenges that you typically encounter within a healthcare organization? And that's really what we frequently hear when we're dealing with our clients. One is, the human resources aspect of trying to build out a data platform as a service. It's really that skill set is very difficult now to find in the market, to really have that deep background in order to build out that type of platform. As in conjunction with that is the architecture. There's a lot of current companies out there, a lot of emerging technologies, and it's very difficult to make sure that a healthcare organization is able to stay up to date and current. So as the technology changes, they need to stay, you don't want to have a technology that's stagnant and that, is current 20 years ago. You want to be able to make sure that you're set for the future. The other one obviously is time. Time as well as, core competency is building out a technology platform, like a data platform as a service, really something that a healthcare organization wants to invest their time in. And the answer really is no, that they want to focus on delivering quality healthcare.
And Dave, I'll add a little bit to the time aspect, especially in healthcare. Currently, what's going on with COVID and so forth, and this is true with every industry, to be honest with you. What we have seen is an exponential need for data assets. So the technology it's super important that the technology meets those challenges. And going back to, and we're going to talk about this in a second, build or buy. There really is very, very little time to get ahead of this. We're fortunate that our clients, because of the technology choices that we've made, have been able to maintain and get ahead of the current data requirements and so forth. And I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end with use cases and whatnot. But the old way of building out data pipelines is super time consuming, and that really needs to change. And then again, another reason for the partnership. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, so we can advance, James.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are considerations that any organization goes through when they look at a new technology. Do you build or do you buy? Clearsense went through this when we started looking at, do we want to build these type of data processing pipelines? Do we really want to reinvent the wheel? There's a lot of solutions and companies out there that have come up with great technology that's current, flexible, functional. And so again, did we really want to reinvent the wheel? The answer was no. The cost of developing something like this in-house, and the cost really comes down to not just money, it comes down to not just resources, but do you really want to spend the time? I mean, trying to get something started and get it out in the market quickly, having that 6 months or a year nowadays, you really just don't get that type of time anymore to spend waiting to build out functionality like this. And then the last thing is obviously it's the differentiator for us really was not there. Now the strategic functionality for us, this is strategic as far as Clearsense goes on our platform. But as far as differentiating, having us build the capability and being able to differentiate from other products in the market, we didn't really feel like that was going to differentiate us based on what we focus on. And so when we looked at the qualities of what we wanted in a tool, for example, it had to have a browser-based application. It had to be able to have multi-tenancy. So we had to allow ourselves as well as external clients be able to log in and see their data, to be able to create data pipelines, data processing jobs and workflows. We had to be able to see the SQL that was generated from that workflow. We identified those as like key criteria on what we wanted to see within a tool that we brought onto our platform. The other thing, obviously, one of the top criteria was it had to be a partner that was willing to grow and adapt with us. They had to be willing to, if there was functionality that we identified, capabilities that we currently didn't have, we wanted them to be able to look at that as capability that they would build into their product and make available, obviously not just for us, but for any customer. Okay, so we can advance here, James.
Sure.
Thus, obviously, that leads into DIYOTTA, identifying DIYOTTA as the partner. When we went through and looked at, all of the capability and functionality that we really wanted to find within a partner, DIYOTTA really brought that to the table. And as we get into, I'll be handing this off here in a minute to my colleague John Fashana, but we wanted somebody, like I said, that would work as a partner, no red tape. We hold weekly meetings with DIYOTTA. One of the early collaborations on new capability that we identified was a bulk data mover, being able to connect and move entire databases onto the platform. The ability for us and external clients to go in and be able to use a SQL editor, for example. That's a whole, new capability module. We the response time has been fantastic, accessing our data lake, for example. I mean, we've got people now that can run queries that comes back in, less than a second. We have external tools that we were using, and the response time was nowhere even close to that. So the capability and the functionality has been.
Hey, Dave, we lost you there.
Can you hear me now?
And I'll pick up from I'll pick up from where Dave was at before Dave cut out on us. I will say that it's when you're looking at technologies and whatnot, the team is extremely important. DIYOTTA's roadmap is their client's roadmap. They spend a good bit of time with their clients, and DIYOTTA makes certain that they understand what their clients' needs are, not just now, but also in the near future as well as the distant future. And because of the architectural choices they made, they're able to continue to put out functionality much quicker than I've experienced in the past. And I think Dave's comments on them interjecting themselves and making them part of the team are very, very valid. So Dave, I don't know if you're still on, but I'm gonna check and see if you are.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you now.
Okay. The other quality that we look for in a partner was agility and response speed. So the DIYOTTA team has been very fast and responsive. For example, the new release that we got has a multitude of capability, which our team will get into here as we get down into some of the new functionality and enhancements that we've requested and how quickly those have come out. So the last thing I'll say is they've just gone above and beyond. They've just been a fantastic partner to work with, and I'm sure their other clients would probably have no problem agreeing with that statement. They've just been we really have looked at them as a partner, as a collaborator in what we've done. So at this point, I will hand off to John Pashana and his team, Beth and Brian.
Hello, folks. Hi, my name is John Pashana. I'm the manager of the data engineering team at Clearsense. And from my perspective, one of the most important aspects of a vendor relationship is to have a responsive development partner. And that's what DIYOTTA has been for us. Starting with the fact Dave mentioned, we meet weekly to discuss enhancements that add features and improve the functionality, performance, and usability of the product. They provide rapid turnaround of these enhancement requests. We work together with them to prioritize enhancements that'll add features for not just us, but anyone using the platform. And we also get really rapid response to our support requests. We meet, again, Dave mentioned weekly, we discuss any outstanding bug fixes or report issues that we would have, and they quickly turn those around for us. So I'd like to introduce you to a couple of members of my team, Brian Leto and Beth Riney from the Clearsense data engineering team, and they can talk about their experiences that they've had working with DIYOTTA. Brian and Beth.
Hey, this is Brian, one of the data engineers at Clearsense. So yeah, we've want to talk about the DIYOTTA platform as specifically with self-service, and as already mentioned, one of the major differentiators for us is that DIYOTTA is available via the web, and so it comes with a drag and drop style of development with ready-to-use transforms, and this gives the users the ability to perform complex operations on the data with quick drag and drop development. And so with this functionality, a user doesn't have to be a SQL expert to manipulate the data. They don't need to understand what's happening behind the scenes in order to create some basic data pipelines. And users have the ability to bring data from a variety of different platforms. And so we're showing on the screen screenshot of the sources that are available, and as well as some of the built-in transforms that are available. And a few of the transforms that we want to talk to that we found the most helpful, one of which is the joiner transform, which does what it sounds like it does. It brings data together from various sources or objects. We have the expressions transform. This is where users can build custom expressions to do things like date formatting, concatenating of data, creating calculated attributes such as groups based on logical conditions, and also mathematical calculations. Then there's the select transform. This is where a user can select which attributes are carried downstream in their data flow. They can also apply a unique function based on either a single field or a group of fields. You can apply data sorting based on a single field or group of field. And if needed, you can add a record ID. And then another transform that we found super helpful is the data cleanse transform. And this is where a user can do some data cleanup on multiple fields at the same time. So for instance, if you need to remove extra spacings from all of your string fields, you can apply that trim functionality to all of your string fields. You can apply case functionality. So if you need an upper or lower case, you can also apply padding if you need to ensure that there's consistent length in your fields. And then finally, if you have nulls that you want to replace either with blanks for strings or zeros for your numbers, you can apply that as well in this data cleanse tool. And then that way it's just consistent across all of your data. So within each of the transforms, users get to leverage that built-in configurations to accomplish a variety of different data transformations. And then also part of the built-in functionality that users can take advantage of is an interactive processing. So this allows a user to get an idea of how their data is shaping up as they develop. And so they can preview how their transformations are affecting their data during the development of a data flow, rather at the end, which makes development much more efficient. And then also with the self-service, users can be set up with some limited administrative privileges so that they're able to manage their organization's users and job scheduling.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Beth Rainey, and I'm also a data engineer at Clearsense. And I just wanted to cover a few more of the benefits that Brian was reviewing. DIYOTTA gives us the ability to make our clients the masters of their own data destiny. They are able to move and manipulate their data on their own. They can curate with configuration of transforms and apply any kind of formatting that is needed, which allows them to adjust their data and respond to quickly changing business needs. They're not constrained by our developers' availability, and this can help eliminate frustration and delays on their part. Additionally, the clients don't have to be concerned with a locally installed application that they have to support, provide resources for, or manage issues. For Clearsense, we're able to scale more easily to more clients, and we can manage multiple organizations within the same resource footprint.
And what we're showing here is kind of a sneak peek of the application. So on the left-hand side, what you're seeing is an example data flow. And starting from the left of that, you'll see there's a variety of data sources. So we're connecting to SQL Server, Splice Machine, MySQL, and then we're using a variety of different transforms to take that data and ultimately land it in a Splice Machine table. And then what we've got circled there in red is the interactive toggle, which when on, you can preview the data on the bottom half of the screen at any juncture within the data flow. And then on the right-hand side is the SQL editor. And this is a capability within DIYOTTA that you can do data discovery with any schemas that you've connected to, any data sources you've connected to. You can view the schema, you can look at the tables that are available, and within the tables you can see the metadata that's for the columns, so you can get an idea of what types of data you're working with. You can also perform queries against your data. So it's a pretty robust tool that you can do some data discovery within the application.
On the next slide, we have a few screenshots of the user administrative side of the application. This gives us the ability to handle our clients' user administration needs. We're able to create a tenantized application by creating organizations, which we can use to hierarchically group users and limit their project visibility to their own projects within our DIYOTTA footprint. The standard user functionality is available. We are able to manage passwords. They can disable or enable users. And our clients are able to assign functional permissions using either custom or out-of-the-box roles. An example of one of these out-of-the-box roles is our ability to assign limited administrative privileges to the clients so that we don't have to be involved in their day-to-day user administration. On the right-hand side, you can see the integrated scheduling application within DIYOTTA. It is extremely helpful to have a built-in scheduling application and not have to integrate with a third party outside of DIYOTTA. It gives us the ability to set up various types of tasks. You can set up command tasks, file watcher tasks. These tasks can be grouped together in order to provide ease of scheduling. And one of the things I particularly like about the way that these task creation work is that it provides a template for each type of command that you're trying to build. So there's no guessing about which parameters are required for a task. You don't have to go to the documentation to try to hunt up those parameters. It's just automagic. It shows up in the box. It's super helpful. Scheduling functionality is fairly standard. You can schedule tasks individually. You can use shared calendars, and you can set up ad hoc or recurring schedules. And this has helped us in several areas where we've been able to automate things that previously we had to manage manually. Additional functionality includes email and command and file events. We haven't had the occasion to use those, but I'm sure that we will in the future. One of the huge benefits for us in implementing DIYOTTA is its native integration with Splice Machine, which underpins our data lake. And this helps us to reduce performance issues as well as provide a more seamless development experience. A couple examples of that include issues we've had in other areas where there wasn't the native integration around syntax, arbitrary limitations such as only supporting a certain number of columns. If you have 100 columns on your table or in your data flow, it doesn't help if the tool limits you to 80. So this native integration has been extremely helpful, and it has provided us with a level of performance that's just absolutely essential when dealing with the vast amounts of data that we have in our data lake.
And what we wanted to show is the actual performance comparison of DIYOTTA versus other tools that we've used for similar processes. And like we've mentioned, the performance with DIYOTTA has been significantly improved with Splice Machine layer. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see the top visual is a pipeline of moving data from a table that had about 1 million records from, a source with a couple of transforms and then landing it into another Splice Machine table. And DIYOTTA was able to handle that in about 18 seconds as compared to our other tool, which took about 21,000 seconds or 6 hours. And so you can see the significant improvement that we noticed there. It's so different that you don't even really see the DIYOTTA bar at all. And then the bottom visual is a count of a table that had 500,000 records. And using the SQL editor in DIYOTTA, it was able to render a result within about 5 seconds as compared to our other tool, which took about 21 seconds. And so it just highlights how much faster DIYOTTA was able to handle these types of scenarios with large amounts of data. So with that, I'm going to hand things back over to Charles.
All right, thank you. Thank you, team. I'm going to go over 3 very interesting use cases. I'll make some general ending comments, and then I'll pass things over to James. So let's talk about Meharry Medical College. Meharry Medical College is HBUC, a historically Black university and college, a medical school in Nashville, Tennessee. The clinical affiliation is with Nashville General Hospital, and they've been a client of ours for 3 years. A matter of fact, the Clearsense and all of the technology within Clearsense is the underpinnings of their Data Science Institute. And if you remember, in the beginning of my talk, I talked about all the different disparate data systems out there, data types and so forth, and the need to bring them all into a location. But more importantly, technology, and in this case, DIYOTTA, to then transform that data and make it into something that is usable. So let's talk about the first use case. And me as a clinical researcher, it really is one of my favorites. So if you think about all the different data types that we've explored, medical records, the exposome data, the wearable data, dental records, and so forth, having all that in one place for a researcher to do what we call cohort, or to make a group out of all that data is super critical. In healthcare, there's something that's called from bench to bedside, and that is the fastest that we can take a discovery that we've found in a lab to actually applying at the bedside. The more we can contract that process, the better. So in this case, one of the researchers at Meharry Medical College made a very significant discovery at a cellular level, and it had to do with the affinity of opioids at the cellular level in high cholesterol environment. So the hypothesis was that patients that had high cholesterol levels were likely a very difficult candidate to wean off of opioids. And we have an opioid problem in the U.S., so that even more due diligence needed to be applied, and those patients needed to be followed if they were on opioids for pain relief and so forth. So finding a discovery like that is great. The next thing that you would go to is what are called mice studies or mice models. So you basically replicate what you saw in the bench in mice models, and then human studies would occur after that at some point in time. But because Meharry had all this data curated in a discovery application, that particular research was able to put a cohort together of patients with certain demographics, certain medical conditions, and then was able to discover any inconsistencies or any difficulty from a opioid perspective, and those discoveries were found. So his hypothesis was actually confirmed within the data. Really, how cool is that? And what it allowed this particular researcher to do was then to get further funding and eliminate the mice model, saving a couple of years, and then go right into the human studies, the clinical trials. So by using a data pipeline such as DIYOTTA, they were able to cut a couple of years out. Another use case within healthcare, particularly within Meharry, and this is where the blind spots come in. Again, taking all those data sources, running them through a data pipeline, and putting them in a way that they can now be consumed by a data scientist. So in this case, the hypothesis was that we could apply data science to these data sources that had been run through this pipeline and curated, and we could do things such as predict whether somebody was going to be a type 1 or type 2 diabetic, heart disease, renal failure, and potential stroke. Not only were we successful with that, but as you might summarize, we were able to, find those that were on the very, very early trajectories to those disease states, identify them, and then, Meharry was able to take care of those patients. And then last but not least, which is present day, what are we doing now? Again, COVID, the ask was to put together, again, multiple data sources, both clinical as well as external, utilizing data within, of course, Meharry Medical College, but also using data external. This is for the purposes of COVID. And, the hypotheses were African Americans potentially have a higher rate of COVID than others. There's a potential disparity in treatment. And last but not least, it was a discovery that we made during this process in that there was difference in treatment, rural versus metropolitan. So having all those data sources in one place, and then be able to process them and make them usable for data scientists, we were actually able to show that within many states in the country, that yes, there was a disparity in not only numbers of cases, treatment, and then we need to really focus on the rural side and ensure that the folks, regardless of demographic, are being taken care of. And what was really exciting is that this data was then used from purposes of Meharry presenting at the House Ways and Means Committee for further funding to continue these studies forward. So those are three actual use cases that were very impactful from a healthcare perspective. And then from a closing comments, and we're going to have time to take questions and so forth. Our experience has been the folks at DIYOTTA are a part of our team. We would not be able to do this without that mindset of that team. And because they paid attention early on and architected the solution to not only take care of our needs now, but what we know will be needs in the near future and as we go forward in the distant future, open so that I can bring in RPA components. And then it was touched upon earlier with connectors to Splice. It's not only Splice, Snowflake, MySQL, everything you can imagine. And guess what? If you have a unique situation, they're going to sit down and they're going to help you and work it out with you. And I think last but not least, from a comment perspective, brilliant in the fact that we have something that is multi-tenant so that our data engineers, such as Beth and Brian and the rest of the team, are able to use the solutions, and our clients are able to use this solution. So it takes care of, yes, our data engineers are very high end, very skilled, yet we have clients that are, in the lower to mid range that are also able to take care of this, product, and within, Clearsense, take care of their needs. So with that, James, I am going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Wow, Charles, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing those three fascinating case studies. I really, really enjoyed that. And also, thanks to Dave, John, Beth, and Brian. I really appreciate you sharing your stories today and giving, obviously your own personal perspectives in terms of implementing a data platform as a service and using DIYOTTA. That was great. So let's get to work on the questions here. I think we've got about 15 minutes left, and I've been inundated with some really great questions, super engaged audience here. So let me see which one I want to pick. Oh, why don't we start with this one? So Charles, let me start with you. During the presentation, you talked about data dexterity. How does that translate into specific data-related challenges with respect to building a platform as a service?
Hey, James, your question cut out on my end.
Oh, I'm sorry. So basically what I was saying, Charles, is that you spoke about data dexterity. How does that translate into specific data-related challenges with respect to building a platform as a service?
Sure, and I'm going to relate this to the healthcare uses, but it also is applicable, across various industries. So from a dexterity perspective, the ability to actually do something with data, and the only way that you can in healthcare really supplant that is to understand from a ontology perspective. So within healthcare, there are no less than 7 various ontologies. And what an ontology is in our case is coding attached to certain data elements. So by providing within your platform as a service, data governance that can then be utilized by your data pipeline is essential. And what do I mean by that? As data is moving through a pipeline and data elements are passing through, the ability to call out and then represent from an ontology perspective, that data element, especially if your end product is a quality product, or dashboards that you're making decisions on, it's really important that you have governance around that, and from a tool set perspective, that you have the proper tool sets available to you, so that from a dexterity perspective, every time you have to take care of a problem, you're not hard coding everything for every instance. Far better to have product such as DIYOTTA than to have a whole bunch of developers building a whole bunch of one-off type applications into our pipelines that have very little chance of being reused. And that is another benefit of that we have found, that the reusability, and not only reusability, but the extensibility of an existing pipeline, just changing it up a little bit and then executing it.
Great answer, thank you. Thanks a lot. Another question here, I'll pitch this one to Dave. Dave, how easy is it for data analyst type users in your team to build data pipelines?
Yeah, good question. I would say it's been very easy. The user interface is, it's a graphical drag and drop user interface. So you don't need to have that SQL background to go in and be functional in it. However, it does generate SQL. So at the end of the day, you can take that, you can actually run it in a SQL editor and see exactly what was generated at the end. So I would say, as far as ease of use, we've had no problem with our people going on and using it. Okay,
thanks, Dave. Here's one, I'll put this out to the engineering team. Brian, could you tell us, does the tool provide interactive results when building the pipeline?
Yeah, so that's where the interactive toggle that can be enabled. While you're building the pipeline, you get a preview of the data so that you can see how your transforms are shaping up and how your data flow is shaping up as you develop.
Awesome. Okay. Great. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah. So here's one, I guess, also for the engineering team. Maybe John, you could pitch in here. Can you touch upon the team-based features for the solution, like multi-user development environment, remote working, offshore and on-site teams, job scheduling features, and that sort of thing?
Sure, I think those are some of the most important differentiators of DIYOTTA, in that it's got a web-based user interface. So that interface allows us to have a multi-user development team that doesn't require local software installation on individual workstations. So that's been especially helpful during the COVID thing, where everyone's working from home. You can, on any browser, you can actually use the tool. Everything is web-based. Including, like you mentioned, job scheduling, we can set up jobs and monitor jobs for data pipelines remotely using the web interface. So I think that's been a very important aspect of the tool.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. Here's a good one, Charles. We're trying to do a similar project, and we're contemplating between private and public cloud. What are your views on this subject? Did you hear me okay, Charles? I know you were having issues with the audio.
I don't know if we've got Charles back. I
don't know, Dave, is that one for you?
Yeah, I can probably jump in on something like that. I would say, obviously, there's benefits to both being in the public and private cloud. As far as, Clearsense, we're a private cloud. However, what exactly is a private cloud? You could look at Amazon or Azure as a private cloud also. I mean, your hybrid cloud, I think, really is where the future is. And a lot of organizations are seeing that, being able to move your data from one cloud vendor to another. And that's really what Clearsense supports, is that concept. So that's, I don't know if we have Charles back on yet or not.
Yeah, Charles,
I'm back. I'm back. Yeah, I'm back, David. You got it. Yeah, you absolutely got it. Yeah, it's not a matter of, a choice. It's a matter of what, depending on what the workload is, where do you want to execute it?
Okay. All right, great. Charles, while I have you, I'm going to throw something out to you here. Questions come in with regards to, it says healthcare data formats can be very complex. Does DIYOTTA provide connectivity to different formats? What was the turnaround time for new connectors in case they didn't have that?
Sure. So I can give a couple of examples. The turnaround time. Yeah, if you guys can pick it up, the turnaround time for our initial use cases were within 5 to 10 working days.
5 to 7, yeah. Okay. Okay, great. And there's another one there, and I don't know, Dave or Charles, if you want to jump in, but this seems interesting. It says, what was the vendor selection criteria? Can you please elaborate on kind of how you went through that process?
Yeah, this is Dave.
Sure. Hey, Dave.
Yeah, so we had certain criteria that we looked at that the product had to support. For example, we have a client-facing web portal. All of our solutions are browser centric. So our external users have to be able to access it through a browser. That obviously had to be one of the key criteria. And that was a drawback to some of the other tools that we had been using in the past. They weren't, you couldn't access them through a browser. It had to have the ability to see the SQL that was being generated. Because if we wanted to take out a certain query after we've gone through and created a workflow, we may want to put that into some embedded agent that's running somewhere, for example. So we really wanted to have access to the SQL that came out. And again, kind of going back to the whole partnership, we wanted somebody that was willing to work with us so that if we had, built some kind of custom solution in some other product, that they would be willing to work with us to bring that in. And I think one example is there was a transformation called a pivot table. They immediately jumped in once we explained what that was. And a pivot table, the idea essentially is that, let's say you have rows and columns within a table, you may want to pivot that, right? So that you reversed it. The rows become columns and the columns become rows. They worked with us to build that new transformation that didn't exist before. So as far as that type of partnership and what we look for quality-wise for somebody that would be able to work with us long-term and be, very responsive for those type of requests, they've just been fantastic. And I think you've heard that from, all of us at Clearsense, which is, really why we're actually doing this webinar. We feel that strongly about that type of partnership. So.
I appreciate you saying that. Thanks a lot. I realize I probably omitted Beth from this conversation, so let me pick one for you, Beth. Let me know if this is a good one. Can you explain the new transformations, especially the data cleansing, transposes, select transforms? Would that be something you'd be good?
Actually, I think I'm going to boot that one over to Brian.
Okay, cool.
Of course. No, so yeah, the data cleanse, it does what it sounds like it does. It's a way to apply some cleanup to your data, but at multiple attributes at a time versus one at a time. So the configuration setup of that, I mean, you're able to select what data cleansing approach you want to take, and then select the attributes that you want to apply that to. So it's just a way to do broader data cleansing versus having to deal with one attribute at a time. The select transform is super helpful because you might have half a dozen different sources that you're bringing together, each of them having however many different attributes that come along. And what you want to do is building your pipeline, you want to focus on the things that you really need to carry forward. And so that select transform provides that functionality of being able to choose at a point within your data flow which attributes you want to deal with from that point on, so that you don't have to deal with a ton of different attributes that you're really are not in your focus. I think that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. All right, I think we've probably got time for one last question before the clock runs down. We're getting close to the hour here. So I'm going to go to one here for you, Charles. It says, can Charles expand on Clearsense's work with DIYOTTA RPA ML AI? Was that reference to actor metadata? Does that make sense, Charles?
Yeah, sure. So yes, it does. So the relationship is such that because of DIYOTTA's architecture, I can build out AI products that at particular points in the data process, the data flow, they can hit those AI products and then do the transformation within the pipeline, and it can be metadata driven as well.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Well, sadly, we're sort of running out of time here. I know there were a couple of questions specifically around 4.5, but Todd, Manasseh, basically, I will personally reach out to you and we'll discuss that after the webinar. I just want to sort of wind things down now and just say thanks to each and every one of you guys for joining us today. I really hope that this was useful for you. We do understand that while your job title may say data analyst, programmer, CTO, CEO, whatever, at the end of the day, what most of you do is for a living is figure out what next, right? So we sincerely hope that what we've been able to do today is answer that question a little bit, and also show you which direction to go when it comes to building a rapid and secure data platform as a service. I want to say thank you just to all the Clearsense folks. Thank you guys for coming on here. Thanks for the kind words. Really appreciate the wisdom that you've imparted. Fundamentally hard work. And finally, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Clearsense, please go to the website clearsense.com, or there's an email there, info@clearsense.com, where you can reach them. And please do check out DIYOTTA. Go to DIYOTTA.com. There's lots of great information on there about our data integration tool. And right now we have just launched 4.5, and so basically there is a free trial of that software. It's our most powerful and user-friendly version yet. So please do come to DIYOTTA.com/request-trial or email us at contact@DIYOTTA.com. So thank you very much, guys. I want to wish everybody a safe and productive day. Bye for now.